Hi, this is Arlen Bennett with the Healing Project. Thanks for stopping in. This is called Don't Turn Back Now. It's on my new release EP that's out there by the same title, The Healing Project. It's actually an old song of mine, but I resurrected it because I didn't want to turn back. It's called Don't Turn Back Now. Reach inside your mind, find the dream you thought about for a long, long time, and climb that mountain that you always said you could, the one you always said you would. Reach inside your pockets, find the change you said that you'd always make, and take the chances that you've been afraid to take. Fear will be your worst mistake. Don't turn back now. Don't turn back now. Dreams are there for the making. Don't turn back now. Don't turn back now. Stars are there for the taking. If you can see through the clouds now, reach inside your heart, find the peace you lost when it broke apart, and start to play the games that children often do. There's still a child in you. Don't turn back now. Don't turn back now. Dreams are there for the making. Don't turn back now. Don't turn back now. Stars are there for the taking. If you can see through the clouds, who else can you rely on? Who else will make it so? There's just one dream to keep your eye on. Until you do, you'll never know. So reach up on the shelf, amongst the dust up there, you just might find yourself, and leave the fingerprints for someone else to find. You're about to climb. Don't turn back now. Don't turn back now. Dreams are there for the making. Don't turn back now. Don't turn back now. Stars are there for the taking. If you can see through the clouds.
Thank you very, very much, Arlen. You know we love your music, and we can't wait to hear all of the new music that you're recording. And I'll just give everybody a little sneak preview. He's coming out with a new song for a project that we're doing in October. So I also want to thank all our sponsors today, because our sponsors help us bring this event to you. I'm Susan Lust, Director of PWP, the Parkinson's Wellness Project, and we gratefully acknowledge the support of our sponsors today. And they are Abbott, AbbVie, Accorda, Kyowa Kirin, Medtronic, and Sunovion. And you see their links by their names. They're there for a reason, because it's great for all of us to learn about what our sponsors have in the medical world for us. Now, today's webinar, I'm very excited about it because it's learning to use your whole brain, storytelling, and the impact of positive thinking. And we will explore the power of thought and speech to organize, improve, and promote positive thinking. We're excited to explore this topic in keeping with our goal. As the song says, accentuate the positive, eliminate the negative. A place a person thinks is where they are. And that is why it is so important to guard what is in our mind. So together, let's use our precious minds to learn how to overcome the fear that freezes us and learn to picture things in a positive light. So our guests today, who you will meet shortly, share that goal, and we're thrilled to have them. I would like to introduce our moderator and a personal inspiration to me, Dr. Jennifer Pallone. Dr. Pallone is presently practicing in Indiana. Sorry to say, she left Poughkeepsie, at the Neurological Institute and Specialty Centers as director of the Aging Brain and Movement Disorder Center. Dr. Pallone received her degree in osteopathic medicine from Kirksville College of Osteopathic Medicine in Missouri. And she completed her internship at Normandy Osteopathic Hospital in St. Louis, and her residencies in internal medicine and neurology at the Chicago Osteopathic Hospital. Dr. Pallone is certified in neurology by the American Osteopathic Board of Psychiatry and Neurology, and she has special interest in the treatment of Parkinson's disease and other movement disorders. Please welcome Dr. Jennifer Pallone.
Thank you, Susan. As always, thank you very much for bringing all this together. Thank you to the Parkinson's Wellness Project for always coming up with very inspiring topics and trying to empower people with Parkinson's to live well. And that's exactly what we have talked about at many different webinars. And again, today, I think what we're going to embark on today is even a little bit different. We always want to find ways to empower our thinking, and positive thinking is extremely important for anyone, let alone if you have an illness that you're trying to overcome. So bringing us together again, we're going to discuss tools, not just typical medical things, which we're going to elaborate a lot on that, but then bringing into that the whole thought of taking control of your situation, giving you the tools to do that, both medical tools and also expanding our positive brain thinking and neurochemistry for the best outcomes. So our first discussion is going to start with Dr. Shahed, and she's going to talk a lot about, we're going to go through a variety of questions that I think are very important to all of you, to talk about the best ways to handle the situations, a practical approach to a lot of different symptoms that go on in Parkinson's disease, and how to interact with your healthcare provider as well. So Dr. Shahed is a neurologist at Mount Sinai West. She's medical director of the Movement Disorders, Neuromodulation, and Brain Circuit Therapeutics, associate professor of neurology and neurosurgery at the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai. After completing her undergraduate degree at Washington University in St. Louis, Dr. Shahed received her medical degree from Baylor College of Medicine and neurology residency training at Duke University Medical Center. She then completed a fellowship in movement disorders at the Parkinson's Disease Center and Movement Disorders Clinic at BCM. So her research interests lie in investigating the intraoperative neurophysiology of patients undergoing deep brain stimulation for movement disorders. So Dr. Shahed, welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with the Parkinson's Wellness Project and to go over, we're gonna pose a lot of questions to you today, and I'm gonna let you elaborate and enjoy yourself, just as if you were in the clinic and you're talking things over with the people who come to see you. So
Great. Thank you so much for that introduction, Jennifer, and thank you, Susan, for the invitation to join this presentation for the group. It's my first one with the group, and I'm very excited to kind of meet you guys virtually, hopefully at some point in person as well, but happy to be here, and hopefully the information we talk about today is useful and helpful as you approach your journeys.
good. And if there's anything else that you wanted to add about your current practice, please feel free.
Yeah, no, I can just maybe give you a little bit of background. I came to the New York area about 1.5 years ago. So I joined Mount Sinai in August of 2019, actually. So a little bit before COVID hit. So that may be why I haven't met as many people and been out in the different support group settings up until this point. But I'm, again, like I said, happy to be here. I came from Baylor College of Medicine, as you mentioned in the intro, and was there for a number of years practicing and had very close relationships with community organizations there as well. So it's very much my pleasure to be here talking to you today.
Very good. Well, that's the interdynamics of interacting with people with Parkinson's disease and what we bring to the relationship, what they bring to the relationship. I think it really expands what we're able to do with them, not just for them, but with them. So.
Right. Yeah, no, I very much agree with that sentiment. And I think, you know, it's easy for me as a physician to sit here and maybe say you should do this, this, and this, but really we have to kind of meet in the middle about what your goals are and what you know what is particularly important to an individual person or a family who's dealing with this condition, and try to figure out what ways are possible to really kind of work through the situations as they arise.
And I like what you said there too. It is involving the family and whatever the person's support around them, whatever strengthens them, is part of, again, the whole approach, the wellness approach. It's comprehensive. So,
Yeah.
So let's start with talking about some of the most important and practical pointers for living well with Parkinson's. What would you just open with that topic?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think, you know, Parkinson's is increasingly understood sort of as a whole body condition. And we know that there are certain symptoms that maybe are more likely to bring people to medical attention. So maybe it's a tremor, maybe it's a change in the way that the person is walking, or some other physical changes that are typically referred to as kind of the motor symptoms of Parkinson's disease. But there's a whole host of other stuff kind of lurking beneath the surface that I think it's also useful to kind of understand as part of this condition. And so I think, you know, when patients ask me, you know, what should I do? What should I be, you know, trying to incorporate into my life? I think, you know, the first and foremost important thing I think as people deal with this condition is just having a good relationship with the doctor. And by that, I mean really a good working relationship. It is, as we were kind of alluding to, Jennifer, just it's kind of a two-way street. And I think, you know, patients who are motivated to do well, motivated to seek information, motivated to sort of follow, you know, the particular treatment recommendations or the treatment path are those that seem to really kind of be, you know, on the more likely side in terms of being able to battle, you know, the challenges that are coming up against them. That Parkinson's might be throwing at them. And everybody has their own kind of brand of it. And so it's really important to be able to talk to your doctor about what is going on, how it's affecting you, what are some of the goals that you have for treatment, or what are some of the things that you're trying to accomplish. And if you feel like you are able to have that conversation, I think that's great. If you're maybe not being able to approach all those different subjects or in the way that you're looking for and getting kind of the input and the feedback that you need, then perhaps it's worth thinking about getting a second opinion or finding another specialist who can help you in the way that you need. So I think that's obviously the first and foremost thing. You know, another part of it, which I think is really kind of dovetailing nicely into the fact that we're all here together today talking about Parkinson's disease and different opportunities for living well, as you said, is really understanding the disease state and kind of seeking information. And there's many, you know, wonderful resources out there. Obviously, the Parkinson's Wellness Project is a great resource. There's national organizations as well with a myriad of very good and important information about the different symptoms of Parkinson's, the different management strategies, some of the new research updates. And I think, really kind of being informed about what is out there, what might be coming up the pathway, or what new treatment opportunities or strategies are available, I think is also important, that not only just facilitating those conversations with your physician, but then also making sure that you are getting kind of the best care possible for your individual situation. So I think that kind of understanding the disease and seeking information is sort of my second pointer, and situations like this where we have the opportunity to just have these kind of more just spend some more time outside of those 20 or 30 minutes that we have in the clinic to kind of pack it all in. This is always a great forum for being able to share that additional information.
Do you find too that people get overwhelmed, I think, easily by the volume of information that is out there?
Right.
And I don't know about how you feel, but I try to narrow it down for them a little bit and give them a few, maybe a handful of really good sites, really good programs to attend, so that they don't get too overwhelmed. Because you're right, there is a lot out there, which is wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah, it is great that we're in an age where there is a lot of information, and certainly a lot of information that's available. And then I think the other part of that is that you have to be sort of thoughtful about where you're getting your information. And there are some key websites. So I do exactly what you say, which is, here's some good resources, and make sure that you're getting your information from good places. And I also always tell my patients that if because this happens very frequently, right? That people will bring in the newspaper cutting or the email that they got from their, third cousin who had, heard that they had Parkinson's and found out about some therapy. And I always encourage patients to bring those in, because, and so we can talk about them, because if you don't ask, you won't know, first of all. And second of all, I think it's just a good part of a good way of being involved and understanding where the opportunities lie and where there might continue to be challenges in treating different things.
And back to one thing we were saying about including family. I mean, yes, they're going to get that. If they don't have a chance to ask you, it's going to be in the back of their minds that there might be something else that I should be doing. So I think it's like you're saying, be very open to the conversation. Write down questions.
Yeah, write the questions down. And that's the other tip that I give patients and families is come prepared to the visit with your list of questions. And it's really okay to do that, because if you don't, then you'll forget something inevitably, and then you'll have to think about how you can get those questions answered. And so I'd rather have the list to be able to go through to make sure that we're hitting, all the important questions and concerns that patients and families might have. So that's a great strategy as well.
Right. And I think it also helps them to, something else that I think we're going to talk about was medication adherence. I mean, this is about medicines. We're very fortunate that we have medications that can alleviate symptoms. And there's, you can take that away, that topic, but there's a lot to say about that as well.
Yeah, and I think, sometimes we do have to engage family in the overall sort of approach to managing this disease well. And so, having everybody kind of on the same page is certainly important. And I think you were bringing up this kind of third point that I was going to make about, effective management and really just kind of very practically approaching the situation is to have a good understanding of what your medication regimen is. And how these medications are working together, what they are supposed to be accomplishing for you, and then to be able to stick to that schedule pretty regularly. And I think, it's the brain is actually pretty predictable in terms of the way that it responds to these medications. And over time, although that can start to become a little bit more unpredictable in Parkinson's patients, initially to be able to try to understand what's working or what's not working, it's incredibly difficult to do when there is some or a little bit too much flexibility in how those medications are being taken. And so it really helps to be able to say, well, I take my medications on this schedule, and I know that after I take a dose of medications, it takes a certain amount of time for it to start working. So to be able to kind of establish that pattern really depends on adhering to the pattern. And so that I think will make the management a lot easier if you can describe that and kind of have a good sense of how that is working. And plus we know, patients are not functioning well when they don't have adequate amounts of dopamine in their system. And these are not medicines that you can either overlap, or if you miss one, catch up on it, or things like that. And so, we try to define the schedule for an individual patient according to what they need and according to how their body is reacting to the medication. So it's really important, in order to get the most out of them, that you are taking them on that regular schedule.
And there's a few other things that you and I had discussed at one point, was just how important it is for general wellness, general health. And so the person needs to be eating well, exercising, sleeping well, in order for really to get the best results out of their medication. And we're going to talk a little bit later, of course, about the positive thinking and how that helps everything else to come together and work at its best.
Yeah.
Can you comment as well on just some of the really disturbing symptoms that people go through? We refer to them as non-motor symptoms, but they have a really big impact on quality of life. So maybe you could just elaborate a little bit about that. We talked a lot about motor aspects of Parkinson's, but non-motor is extremely important.
Yeah, and you mentioned, at least one of those, which was sleep disturbance, and you're absolutely right. I mean, I think when sleep is messed up, then that can change everything, right? I mean, sleep is very much a brain function. It's an important part of, your brain resting and kind of regrouping so that you're kind of feeling better in the morning. And if you're not getting good sleep, then that's going to not only make you feel crummy, but it's also going to affect your physical function. So that's a major important non-motor aspect of Parkinson's. We know that people with Parkinson's can have various types of insomnia. So it might be trouble getting to sleep. It might be trouble staying asleep. It might be that they're waking up so often to go to the bathroom that that's disruptive to their sleep. There's also another common condition called REM behavior disorder that affects sleep. And so this is where patients may start to have very vivid dreams. They can be very active, physical dream content, which is then mirrored by dream reenactment, where whatever it is they're doing in the dream, they're actually doing physically in the bed, even though they're still asleep. So punching, kicking, talking, yelling, screaming. And this can be sometimes a little funny, but sometimes it can actually be problematic because they're either at risk of injuring themselves or potentially even a bed partner. And so knowing about these symptoms, first of all, and then secondly, being able to get them addressed appropriately can certainly help with the quality of life. But, that's just one aspect of non-motor symptoms. And I've given this lecture several times to Parkinson's groups, and I will never forget the one presentation that I did where a gentleman at the end raised his hand at the end. He goes, "Thank you for explaining all of that to me, because all this time I thought my body was falling apart, but really I just have Parkinson's."
Right.
And Parkinson's can explain a lot of these different things that are going on. So whether it is bladder symptoms, so urgency, frequency, getting up in the middle of the night, maybe even in some situations, some incontinence, whether it's constipation. So, having to work hard to have a regular bowel regimen. Some patients may have sexual dysfunction. They may have other of what we call these autonomic features, which is kind of affecting your automatic body functions. The other main one there is the blood pressure that I was alluding to.
Right.
So people may get dizzy or lightheaded when they stand up, and that is problematic because it can potentially expose patients to risk of falls. Yeah. And it can cause confusion and other things as well. So those are all part and parcel of Parkinson's disease. And so it's important, A, to recognize they can happen, and B, to be able to talk to your doctor about them to get them addressed. And then, and then there's the whole kind of mood and anxiety component of things, right? So people with Parkinson's are much more likely to be dealing with depression and anxiety than non-Parkinson's patients. It's actually probably upwards of 40-50% of individuals will have some of these symptoms or features. And there's different ways to address them, but they can definitely impact a person's outlook, a person's quality of life, a person's, just ability to sort of cope with all the different changes that this condition is, like I said, throwing at them.
Right. And everything that you have said up to this point is all part of helping them to not be so anxious about their condition, because they will understand it better. I think that is, they learn so much when they attend these sessions, when they come into the office. And I think that can help to alleviate some of their anxiety, but the anxiety is also neurochemistry. And later on in our webinar today, we're going to talk about neurochemistry and also how to impact that through positive thinking. There may also be some avenues where people have to actually get to a psychiatrist or a psychologist and get some medication that's going to also help that neurochemistry. But in your opinion, do you feel like also that anxiety exacerbates a lot of the physical symptoms that people are dealing with?
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, if you, I think anxiety and depression both, really, to be honest. I mean, I think, because of the brain chemistry, there are certain patients who, when their dopamine levels are not, regulated well, every time those dopamine levels drop, then they're much more prone to either symptoms of depression or anxiety. And when that happens, it can become very problematic for some individuals to really, kind of manage in terms of not only just their medications and how they're feeling and things like that, but then also because it really has some very clear overlaps and interplays with the physical symptoms of Parkinson's. So, we find that certain symptoms, things like gait freezing, for example, this is one of those that has pretty good correlation with anxiety features. And not to say that anxiety causes gait freezing.
Dr. Shahed, could you just comment on what you mean by gait freezing?
Oh yeah, so gait freezing is that feeling where people know that they want to move, but they can't get their feet to move, right? So they are conscious, they want to take that step, but then their feet are just sort of stuck in place. And so they might have trouble getting started, or if they're in a narrow space, then they might take those sort of stutter steps, or if they're kind of anticipating something coming up, then they just sort of all of a sudden freeze up and it's hard to continue taking those steps. So that's what we're talking about in freezing.
Right.
And specifically with gait freezing, there's other types of freezing as well. Yeah. And so there is naturally, I think, a lot of anxiety associated with that. But then I think also from a brain chemistry standpoint, there's an association between, the neurotransmitters that are responsible for anxiety and also for this particular symptom. So that can become a very challenging combination of symptoms.
Right. People will tell me that if someone's watching them, they need to go through a doorway. Yeah. Say they're out at a store, someone's waiting. Someone is kind and they're holding the door for them.
Yeah.
But in actuality, the fact that someone's standing there holding the door for them and they get anxious, they can't get that step. So it just goes back to what you're saying. It's that it's like a mental block, so to speak, right, of being unable to.
Kind of an ugly sort of feedback loop. And it's, it's the same thing even with tremor sometimes, right? So people often, we can get them on a good medication regimen that helps control tremor, but then if they're placed into a situation where they're anxious or nervous or upset or something, then, the tremor will come out regardless of how well you've kind of done with the medication management. And so there's definitely, that feedback and interplay as well between the anxiety symptoms.
Yes, absolutely. What are some ways that people with Parkinson's dealing with mood or anxiety can manage to get help? So we touched on that a minute ago, but if you could just give your from your standpoint of what the steps that you go through when a person in the clinic is dealing with this as a main problem.
Yeah. I mean, I think the first step is always sort of recognizing it and acknowledging it. And I think, mental health has always been, there's always been a little bit of a taboo about it and a little bit of maybe embarrassment about maybe admitting it or, really acknowledging that it's there and really seeking the help that is going to lead to resolution or improvement of those symptoms. And so that makes it doubly hard, right? Because we were talking about how in Parkinson's, these symptoms are so common. I think it is okay to sort of blame it on the Parkinson's, right? If there needs to be some sort of blame placed, because we know the chemistry changes. And again, we're going to hear a lot more about that later, but it's something that is definitely a real part of symptoms for a lot of patients. And I think for some individuals, it kind of almost doesn't matter how much you do with the other things. If the mood and the anxiety are not well regulated, then they're going to continue to struggle and continue to have a problem. So I think, when I'm approaching a patient, sometimes it is, when I'm examining them, I can see their motor symptoms and their motor features, and I realize that those are actually pretty well controlled, but then the patient's not feeling well. They have other symptoms that they're talking about that really, may be more attributable to these kinds of aspects of the condition. And so, again, being able to have that conversation, have the recognition that it's there. There are medicines, but I also hesitate to say that every single part of this needs to be managed with a pill, right? So there's different ways to manage anxiety and depression aside from just taking medicines for it. So you could change your activities, you could go proactively and join, you know, groups and seek information and socialization that way. You can, you know, find different activities to participate. Again, we're going to hear about this later, so I don't want to kind of trump that conversation, but I think that, you know, there's also, you alluded to psychology and psychiatry, and sometimes that's a helpful, you know, way to, you know, just get a handle on how the symptoms are affecting you, and to recognize kind of that, what we call cognitive behavioral therapy, and just understanding the relationship of the symptoms together. So that can be really effective even without having to take medications. And, you know, if I need a psychiatrist to help me with the management of a patient, I will recruit the assistance of a psychiatrist, but a lot of times I end up managing these symptoms with medications on my own.
Right. At least initially, I'll do the same. If we're not making progress, then I will certainly seek the subspecialist, the specialist to take that over. Right.
They can be very important team members for some of our patients.
Yes, I like that team. It is really a team from many aspects. And I believe that it's multifactorial. So many things that we need to tune up and improve on, and we can get there. I think that's the whole point of this webinar and others, is that we can get there. It's attention to detail.
Right.
But we can get there.
Attention to detail, recognition, acknowledgement, and then implementing, right? So I think those are.
Could you also comment on one of the other interesting conditions that people deal with? They'll ask me sometimes, do I have that masked face?
Mm-hmm.
And I also have people that I'm working with where I'm not sure they're getting what I'm saying to them.
Mm-hmm.
There's no facial expression, that interaction's not there. They're so flat. And it can be misleading to people around them as well. Yeah. So can you comment on that and just how that comes across sometimes as being depressed? Mm-hmm. It can come across as being angry. It can come across as not caring, looking apathetic.
Yeah, no, I think all of those things, right? So, I mean, I get this, I think people recognize that masked faces, that kind of not blinking as much, that not having the spontaneous smiling or the spontaneous gestures as, as somebody who's unaffected with Parkinson's. And this can sometimes be some of the earliest one of the earliest features that other people might notice that are going on with an individual who ultimately gets diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. So we call this hypomimia. Hypo means low or less, and mimia just means facial expression. And so it's a very descriptive term. Some people call it the poker face. Some people, just call it the masked faces, as we mentioned. And so that is, a hard one to sometimes navigate and to interpret. And I think that, a lot of times when I've got the patient and the spouse in the room, it's the spouse that's saying, oh, this person looks depressed, and clearly must be, because he just looks depressed. Right. And so then I turn to the patient, I say, well, are you depressed? And a lot of times the answer is no. I mean, they're perfectly happy. They have many things that they look forward to, that they enjoy, that they, are being able to manage and cope and deal with very well. And so there's definitely this difference between looking depressed and actually feeling depressed. And so we have to first ask ourselves that question. Depression has many faces, right? So there can be many features of it, including the frank sadness, but it can also be the lack of interest, the lack of motivation, the lack of being able to derive, satisfaction or enjoyment out of things that were previously satisfying or enjoyable. And so I think also sleep and eating, these are all different symptoms that can come up in a person who is depressed. So there's several different ways that we can kind of assess for whether that is actually there, but it ultimately depends on having that direct conversation and interaction with the patient about it. But I think the one that's kind of the hardest to really kind of navigate is the apathy piece. And apathy is more that just really more of the lack of interest or lack of motivation and lack of enjoyment. And it may not even be the lack of enjoyment, but just the kind of not being able to get off the couch kind of situation. And if there's something exciting going on, no, I'd rather not. I'd rather just stay at home. I'd rather, do what I'm used to doing. And that can be challenging because it can occur in the absence of frank depression. I mean, if it does occur with depression, then you can treat the depression. Hopefully the apathy gets better. But when it's occurring kind of on its own, just on a basis of kind of the brain changes that are occurring in Parkinson's disease, then we have to devise a few more strategies to really kind of help and deal with that situation, whether it's scheduling, regular activities for that individual, or making sure that there's social things going on and interactions that can be happening, whether it is sometimes certain medications to try to help give a little boost. Sometimes that can help as well. Sometimes even just digging a little deeper to find out if there's more brain changes going on than just the things that are affecting the movement symptoms and the mood. Sometimes apathy comes along with some cognitive changes as well. So we want to be
great point. Right. So as people can see, we understand that there are many symptoms that they're dealing with, battling, and we want to actually address each and every one of them as best we can. And if we can't, we will get them to someone who can. And we can, and I think you as well, I get that sense. I mean, you're a believer. We kind of, quality of life is there.
Yeah.
Maybe harder for some than others, but we're there to make sure that we address their top concerns that day and others as time goes on.
Right.
Could you take a moment or two and just describe maybe one person that you've worked with where that, making even a mild change made a big difference for them?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think these non-motor features, like we've talked about, are so, they can be quite problematic. I mean, whether it's something simple like putting somebody on a medication for bladder so they can sleep through the night, I mean, that's such a classic example, yet it, is something that we can intervene on very readily and easily and kind of have that big impact. But I'll never remember one of these patients, one of my patients that came to me recently, and he was still kind of early in his Parkinson's journey. I think the symptoms were definitely there. They were definitely noticeable. It was definitely something we could diagnose for him. But really the biggest complaint for him and his biggest struggle was difficulty sleeping. And he'd been dealing with this to a certain extent for most of his life. But then I think as the Parkinson's crept up and really became more of a, kind of a known thing for him, then the insomnia became just worse and worse and worse. And I got to the point where he was, either taking medicines, or I think he was taking the medications. And even though he was taking them, they weren't working. And maybe it wasn't the right medicine, but he was struggling both with getting to sleep as well as staying. I mean, he was just miserable, right? All day long. I mean, I think I tell my patients there's a reason why sleep deprivation is a torture technique, because it's not fun. It is not good. It really has terrible implications for day-to-day functioning, whether it's cognitive functioning, whether it's physical functioning, all of those different things. So anyway, we talked about it. We tried a couple of things, and we finally found a medication that really just kind of did it for him. And it really took that trial and error and a little bit of that persistence to find it. But he was like a new man. I mean, once he could get let's say 6 or 7 hours of consolidated sleep, whereas before it was just an hour here and there.
Right.
I mean, he was happier, he was physically better. We didn't need to have him on sort of these higher doses of medications. His mood got better, as I said, and he's been quite stable since we made that intervention. So it's been a really great point.
Yeah. Right, sleep, crucial. Very crucial.
I know,
right?
More of it.
And mood. I think that if we looked at the top things that really bother people, I would say, lack of sleep and mood, which those things interact as well. So
much.
I think in summary, I think, when people come to clinic, and we always have these questions that we go through with them every time, yes, no, do you have this, don't you have that, and it really helps, I think, when we, as a healthcare provider, we scan through that and we're seeing what, we can pick those out, so quickly. And I'll also just say, so what's bothering you the most today? As a lead in to where we're going to go from there. Yeah. And we have in our minds an approach of things we're going to ask. And, maybe it's motor, maybe we're going to follow up on whatever we did the last time they came in, but also asking them.
Yeah.
So, Give us
And this is-
a top, couple of complaints that you want to work on today.
This is one of the reasons why I have and ask my patients to come in regularly for visits, even if they feel like things are going okay with the tremor or the walking or whatever. And it's because we then get the opportunity to spend some time talking about the other things. And as you said, I've got my kind of list of questions that I go through. So are you sleeping well? Are you thinking clearly? Are you having any trouble with speech or swallowing? Are you sleeping okay? How's your bowel and bladder? We kind of go through all of this. And sometimes, yeah, things are still also a-okay in that realm, but otherwise we may run into a realization about these other symptoms, and it gives us an opportunity to try to intervene on those things as well.
Right, head them off, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Terrific. Thank you so much for getting into all that. I know we could talk about probably each and every one of those
Yeah.
things for 30 minutes. So thank
That
you
is-
for, summarizing, hitting some of these highlights. And I think we'll move next into talking more about neurochemistry and about positive thinking. We try to impart that positive thinking when we're in the office with people by, giving them tools to, oops, let me just close this, sorry, tools to work with. And we're going to talk now about something that's actually kind of near and dear to my heart, because I really hit on this a lot with people, and that's about positive thinking. The people that I've worked with for, maybe they've had Parkinson's going on 20 years. The ones that are doing, really well are those that have taken a positive attitude from the start and, taking that first step forward. And I think the song, as we heard from Arlen at the very beginning, don't turn back, let's look forward and let's figure out every tool that we can to make this as good a journey as possible. So I'd like to actually welcome Dr. Adida. And she's going to talk with us about the impact of positive thinking through a unique approach through storytelling. So let me just introduce Dr. Adida. She's actually has quite a broad areas of interest. So we're glad to have her here today. It's actually evening where she is. So thank you for making spending your evening with us. So Dr. Adida, she's a medical director and specialist in neurology at RAC Hospital in the UAE. She earned her MBBS in 2003 and an MD in medicine in 2006 from Saurashtra. Sorry, I'm not good with that. University in India. She completed her MBA in healthcare concentration from the University of Cambridge in the UK. She studied stroke care as a vascular fellow at the University of Calgary in Canada, and holds a fellowship in the American College of Physicians. And Dr. Adida doesn't just do medicine, she does a lot. So very interesting, some of the points that we were learning about her earlier, things that she has special interest in. So she's actually a table tennis state champion in India. So that's wonderful. She's an avid traveler over 30 countries. And I think what also brings us all together today in her special areas of interest, she's a spiritual seeker. So past life hypnotherapist trained under Dr. Brian Weiss. And she's done some speaking, actually a TED Talk on the impact of story on brain. She's done a lot of research. She's been involved in a lot of different workshops. So let's welcome Dr. Adida and learn from her today. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Dr. Pallone. That was very kind of you. Thank you, Suzanne, for inviting me, and excited to meet all of you, although virtually, but here we say in UAE, inshallah, we'll meet one day also in person. So thank you again, and I'm going to share my screen to pop up the slides. Just let me know if they are fine. I would need 1 second for doing that. Yes, Dr. Pallone, just let me know if you're able to see the screen. And I hope it's full screen by now.
There it is. Yes, we've got it.
Perfect. Okay.
Good to go.
So-
Good to go. Thank you.
Great, great, great. So again, Parkinson's disease, we heard a fantastic discussion between Dr. Juhi and Dr. Pallone. We are going to talk more about the positive storytelling, and I'm going to use a bit of NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming, and some self-hypnosis. It's going to be exciting. If you still feel it's too boring, you can go to sleep. I mean, I can go to sleep because it's evening for me, but you don't fall asleep. Well, let me start with a story. And my story is similar to yours because my grandfather had Parkinson's disease. And since that time, Parkinson's disease is very close to my heart. Although I did not specialize in Parkinson's or in movement disorder, from the time I became a neurologist, the picture of my grandpa always comes in front of me. So he suffered from this Parkinson's disease, and I often called it dis-ease. So you're not at ease, you're not feeling well, you feel rigid, you feel stiff, you can't move. And that is what the actual meaning of even disease is, so to speak, if we just break the word apart. Now, I found a nice poem, which is on the Parkinson's Foundation, which is written by a 5-year-old, which kind of summarizes what the Parkinson's disease is all about, right? And this is a beautiful poem. It says, my grandpa has PD, 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 PD. Sometimes his hands will shake, 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 shaky, shake. Sometimes his head will wobble, 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 wobble. Sometimes he will walk so, so, so slow. And my grandpa has PD, PD, PD. Now, from that time, what I saw with my family, with my parents who were taking care of my grandfather, was that there was something called as the grief cycle within the family. And this is what we go through whenever we face any sort of challenge. Now, that may be in the form of a disease, or maybe in the form of any other thing that you can think about. It could be a financial situation, it could be a relationship breakup, anything. We all go through this beautiful Kubler-Ross cycle. I want to spend a minute talking about this cycle because the first phase of this cycle is denial. I can't have a particular disease. I can't have this. And then obviously a little bit down there, you start becoming angry, frustrated, irritated, anxious about the problem. And then you start bargaining that, it's a helpless feeling. Possibly it exists, possibly it's not. There's some sort of hostility into the thing. And then there is depression, which means you're struggling to find the meaning into the whole thing. You're telling one story and you're reaching out to others again, trying to see if that relates to your story. And finally comes, after you go through this, the acceptance that, yes, this is what I have. This is what I'm going through, and this is what I can do about it. So my spiritual teacher used to say a beautiful word. She used to say that be aware, care, and then dare. So being aware essentially of all the symptoms of Parkinson's disease, being aware of all the latest stuff what is happening in Parkinson's disease, and caring. For example, you came in large numbers to hear us out. That is the care which you showed us, so that you can dare to do something different. And today's thing is not going to be a normal discussion that you might have had. So it's going to be somewhat out of the comfort zone, but I promise in the end, it's all going to be well. So with this thing, I want you to, again, have a glance through the Kubler-Ross cycle, which we all go through day in and day out with different situations and different problems. Now, the duration might vary. Some people may take a few weeks going through the cycle. Some people take few months. Some people may take a few years, but essentially all of us, you, me, everybody goes through this typical cycle. Now, Parkinson's, as we just heard from the experts, that it's not just beginning as immediate sort of the motor symptoms, or you don't straight away get into the freezing that Juhi was talking about, or you don't get into the tremors, etc. You do have some pre-Parkinson's disease before the levodopa levels or the dopamine levels actually come down when levodopa is required. You do have this smell issues. You have some non-motor early symptoms which begins start coming in even 5 to 7 years before a frank Parkinson's disease begins. And then obviously Parkinson's disease is when you have the lower dopamine. But this is all that we know. But today what we are going to do is, our essence is how can we retap or rebalance the dopamine that we are talking about, not just dopamine, but a lot of other stuff. But before I actually get into the talk, there is a lovely concept called nocebo. Now, we all know about placebo. Placebo is, for example, I just give this water as a medication and say that to the patient that this is the medication that you're offered. While in that case, the patient imagines that, oh, I'm drinking a medicine and I'll get better. But what is a nocebo? Now, there are a lot of studies, and this is very interesting, friends, because there are a lot of studies which have been done on the nocebo. One of them is very latest. For example, today, I had a vaccine, and if the vaccine person told me it's going to burn, it's going to be very discomfortable, you're not going to feel fine after taking the vaccine, for sure. If this is what I heard, if this is what I imagine happening, for sure it might happen to me. So a lot of times, I think the research is quite clear that 50 to 60% you can actually induce the symptom by talking about it in a negative fashion. So this is where the positive and the negative part of it comes into play. So again, I repeat, if you're talking negative about a symptom, you can actually induce a system. And this is which has been already proven. There's enough stuff out there. I think we all have Mr. Google with us, Mrs. Google, whatever you want to call it, to just see what is this nocebo effect. So my first humble conviction here is that whatever we talk today, let's take it in the positive tone, because we are going to make a difference by daring the things that I'm just going to talk about. So with that in mind, let me actually move into the stuff which is related to today's talk, okay? So dopamine is the main player, but there are many subsidiary players. So when it comes to the neurochemistry of the brain, we have about 100 billion neurons in the brain. And if I were to count those, it is going to take me 36 long years, day in and day out, counting them. And there are some connections in the brain. And if I were to count that as a kilometer range, I'm going to travel possibly here from Dubai to your place in States about 3 to 4 times. So it's about 180,000 kilometers long. So brain is essentially packed with all these action stuff, the neurons, all the chemistry. There are about 40 odd neurochemicals which are in the brain. There's a nice symphony. Okay, we heard the beautiful music as you came in. There's a nice symphony of chemicals which is happening in the brain, and just at the right sort of place, right time. But what is happening in PD is the little bit of lower part of dopamine is not getting secreted from a thing called substantia nigra. I won't go into the technical details, but what is important is, what are these subsidiary factors? There is serotonin for the mood, there's acetylcholine for the memory, there's oxytocin for the bonding, feeling good. So many chemicals are there which are important in running this symphony, not just chemicals. Basically the neurons are firing. There is some sort of a electrical impulse which is going on within the neurons. And this electrical impulse, we actually document it by doing an EEG. So ECG is for the heart, and we have EEG, what we do for the brain. It's very interesting that each of the brain waves essentially describes what our state of mind is. So if I'm anxious, if I'm continuously worried, I generate beta state in my brain. If I'm just relaxed and calm, I generate an alpha state in my brain. If I'm creative, if I'm working on something, I generate something called as the theta in my brain. And when I go to sleep, I generate delta. But what is more important is today, whatever the exercises that we are going to do, there won't going to be only a couple of them, but they have been shown to generate a rhythm called gamma. And gamma means it is oscillating beyond a certain frequency when you can release all the neurochemicals at once. So simple things, if we are able to do at will, okay, now this is very important. For example, I'm just sitting here, my mood is upset, but at will, I want to just be happy. So it's like a switch. I just want to turn on the switch and I want to just become happy. This is what I can do by these simple exercises and techniques, okay? So it's very important to understand the neurochemicals, the neurochemistry, to just tap into it the right way. What do we have to really understand for that? 10% only, 10% of only. This is extremely fascinating, and this has fascinated me for 2 long decades. And I love doing this psycho-spiritual sort of experiments where we can go actually beyond this limited 10% conscious brain or conscious mind that we know. So conscious brain or conscious mind, now still the scientists are figuring between out what is brain and mind, but whatever when I say brain, I mean mind. When I say mind, I mean brain. In technical terms, they may be different, but in practical sense, we're talking that when we talk about the conscious brain, we're talking of the fast beating beta waves, we're talking rational thinking, intellectual thinking, and it is essentially just the small little place where we process the information. But what is deep within is the subconscious brain or the subconscious mind. Now, this is so deep, it's about 90% of the whole sort of the brain make. The subconscious mind is like essentially much more powerful. It is where all the emotions, where all the techniques that of hypnosis or self-talk or positive, when we talk, that is where it hits. So when we talk, when we hear about what is Parkinson's disease, what does it do, what is it caused by, we're just hitting the 10% of the conscious brain. But when we are talking about the emotional part of it, when we are talking of the alpha state, the generation of the theta rhythm, we're talking of the imagery, whatever the feelings that I'm having within is all through the subconscious mind. And of course, I'm not going to talk about the unconscious mind, which is not relevant here, but today our thing is to tap into that subconscious to essentially activate all the neural chemistry that we have, roughly about 40 chemicals. We want that symphony, we want all the neurochemicals to kick in to give us all the positive benefit, which otherwise we would get it by taking a pill. So the fundamental basis which I'm going to use in this set of experiments is going to be based on NLP and hypnosis. Now, NLP sounds very fascinating, like, okay, what is this neuro-linguistics programming and all, but I'm going to very simply explain in a couple of slides what NLP is. But before that, I want you to do a practical experiment before we actually get into the real NLP stuff. And this is an intent experiment. Now, this experiment has been conducted multiple times. I'm sure you will find it on Google. And this is a beautifully demonstrated experiment where you can know how through the intent you can change your physiology. Okay, so when I say intent, I'm talking to the subconscious mind, tapping to the reserves of the subconscious mind and making a physical change. It can be in the physiology, it can be in the external physical body. Okay, so very simple experiment. Any of the panelists can join if they want to do it. I think Phil is here. We can do it, or if you are all sitting there, you can try it at home. I'm going to show it very simply, but I think we can invite Phil to do that. It will be fun to do it. Yes. May I have Phil? But before that, we can also ask Dr. Pallone to quickly introduce our friend who is going to help us with this exercise.
Yes, wonderful. This is terrific. I'm really enjoying your talk, Dr. Adib. Thank you so much. It's fascinating, of course, to a neurologist particularly, but I think to all of us. So we're going to welcome Phil Schneider. Phil, thank you for coming. Phil's been part of the webinars on and off since the beginning, and we really love having him here today to do an interactive trial, just show us how all of this works. So let me tell you a little bit about Phil. So Phil is the founding partner of Schneider Speech Pathology. He's recognized as a master clinician and teacher. He has been practicing and teaching for over 40 years, and he holds the title of Professor Emeritus of Communication Disorders at Queens College at the City University of New York. Thank you, Phil, again, for being here. And I'm really interested to see where we're going from here.
Thanks for including me. I'm excited.
Excellent. Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Dr. Pallone, again. So we are all, along with Phil, we're going to match the bottom of our wrists. Okay, exactly match it. It should not be up or down. It should be right, well matched. And we are going to put our hands together and see which of the middle fingers, okay, not the ring, not the little, but the middle fingers is taller or shorter. Now for me, my left middle finger is shorter. What is it for Phil?
The
It can be
right,
equal, which is
the
fine.
right is a 1/4 inch shorter.
Right. So for Phil, right is a 1/4 inch shorter. Anything for Dr. Palone? Is it equal?
I would say that my right is actually a 1/4 inch longer.
Perfect. Okay. So I want you to, each of you and whoever is participating with us in the webinar, each of you to focus on your shorter finger. I want you to focus on your shorter finger and you will do a small mental intent. You are going to increase the size of this finger to either match the other finger or even grow taller than that. You're going to do a mental intent, watching, either you can watch the fingers or just close your eyes and put your mental intention of increasing the size of the shorter finger, whichever is the finger which is shorter for you. You're going to either make it equal or you're going to make it taller than the other finger. Just do that mental intent, few seconds, just focus, focus, focus only on your finger. Cut out all the noise, and then you can just dismantle your hands. And again, one more time, focus, have the intent, bring back the attention on your fingers, and let's do it again. It's as simple as that. So what happened, Phil?
Well, I was able to get the finger, it's hard for me to believe it, but the right was a 1/4 inch shorter. I've got it to a 1/4 inch longer. And the second time when I came back together after being apart, it just kind of went there.
Yes.
It's kind of amazing.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Phil. And what happened for Dr. Palone?
No, mine evened out,
Oh,
pretty
okay.
actually. Yes.
Great, 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 great. So this is real. This is no hypnosis. This is no trance. Okay, this is real. This is changing the state of physiology merely by shifting the attention and focus. So there's a principle. Thank you, both of you. Thank you. And we will again convene back as we do the later half of the exercise.
Okay.
And I will be continuing the talk. The important part here is that wherever the focus goes, the neurons grow. And as the neurons grow, you tap into the chemicals which are there and you actually make a change in the physiology. So the steps are very, very simple and crystal clear. This is actually a physical experiment which has been done. You can take a caliper, you can take any sophisticated micromillimeter instrument and do it for yourself, and the same results would come by. Every time, if the intent is honest, if you are not judgmental, if you're really putting the effort, it will come to be true. And you can do a lot more intent exercises. A lot of experiments have been done on drawing. You can just go back and maybe take a pen and paper. This is sort of a home exercise for you, and try and draw anything that you like quickly, with, let's say, within a half a minute, whatever you like. And then on the second page, just focus and intent and develop this thing, the concept that you are the best painter in the world possible. Okay, don't laugh at it, because you want your intent to be as powerful. You want your neurons to actually fire and help you to give out that best part of the drawing piece. So just merely giving that intent, and we have done this, believe me, on thousands of patients, thousands of people, and we have actually shown in one of our papers the same thing, that once you do that really with an intent, the strokes that you are going to make in the second painting are going to be unbroken. It's going to be a beautiful, again, symphony of the painting that you're going to make. You're not going to have the broken or the sort of the half strokes, what we call. Anybody who is a painter knows that the whole beauty of the painting is only by the strokes and how the strokes are flowing. So this has been shown and this has been proven. Again, it proves the same point, that if you're putting an intent that I am healthy, I am not freezing, I am completely into myself, I am feeling happy, you would start feeling happy very fast by the state change of physiology or psychology. Okay, it's always called as the psycho, neuro, physio, immuno, endocrinology. So I like to say it fast: psycho, neuro, physio, immuno, endocrinology. It's very interesting. It starts with psychology and goes on and hits until the endocrinology. So you can try it at home and let me know the next time what happened. Now, coming back to NLP, we were talking about the neuro-linguistics programming. So what that does. So I have an external event. I got PD, and I know I read about PD, and I'm quite depressed by it. Obviously, I am, first of all, as I said, when we went through the grief cycle, now I've come to terms that I have PD. Now I have certain filters in my mind, and those filters are my values, my beliefs, what I have heard, some sort of things which are deep within me in my subconscious. The deep within subconscious says that PD is only treatable to a certain extent. Who says so? The common world says so. Who says so? The science says so. So there's already some sort of a belief, some sort of a thing which is filtered. These are all the filters, the mental filters. So I have certain set of filters, and now this external thing comes to me, and then it goes through my filters and comes and gets into my behavior by the state that I am in. So if I accept my filters, I'm already in a state of depression. I'm already not feeling well because I know that the filters have told me, oh, this is bad to have, this is not good to have. What if I can change the filters? I don't have control over the external environment. I don't have control over the situation that I'm put in, but I do have control over my filters. And these filters are nothing but, again, the small bits and pieces of the neurochemistry and the rhythms that we are talking about. It's all interconnected. So it's all the background thinking, the subconscious beliefs which we are talking about, which has a great power to change the state and the physiology. It's very interesting to think for a while. Why do we like to, okay, go to, let's say, a dance party, or you go to a bar, or why do you want to see a movie? What are you trying to do? Essentially, if you think a little harder, you are just trying to change the state of your mind. The moment you change the state of your mind, and we are all constantly searching for that change state, we are already searching that state change. What if you are able to do it at will, as we told? What if I'm able to, even without watching a movie, feel happy and generate all the neurochemistry within? What if I, even without going to a party, I feel that all the rush of chemicals without actually meeting my friends? What if I can have those chemicals? So this is the small little tips and tricks that we are going to talk today to do that at will. I'm stressing this point time and again because it's very important. You can do it once, but you should learn to do it multiple times in a day. And this is what NLP teaches us. So NLP teaches us a lot of things. NLP is quite wide and used, but I'm just going to talk and actually pick up small little stuff about it, which we will talk for today. Okay, we talked this earlier, but we heard the experts also talking about all the anxiety, the depression. We heard about the feeling depressed versus actually being depressed, mask faces and all. And we talked about a lot of non-motor symptoms. Now, remember, these are all the expressions coming out from the conscious mind or the conscious brain. It is all the associations and the beliefs coming out from the conscious brain. What is within? Within is not these symptoms. What is within is the emotions, is the emotional disconnect, is the real anger or the fear or the guilt or the shame. Cognitive science says there are only 3 primal circuits which gets activated in any individual to stop accessing the whole brain. You heard the topic initially, the whole brain, right? The whole brain is nothing but the beautiful cortex with all the symphony and all the subconscious involved in it. What stops it is essentially 3 fundamental emotional circuit issues. That's one is shame, one is pride, and one is fear. I'm not going to go today into the details of it, but anybody who's interested, just type how to overcome the primal circuits, and you will see a whole bunch of stuff which can open up for you. So again, very important that we have to get to the bottom at the subconscious mind to try and change what is coming out from the 10% conscious, rational thinking into action, action into behavior. And sleep is a very fundamental subconscious tap source. It is the subconscious access where most of the things are happening, all the neural chemistry. Now, it is very surprising when I learned when I was a medical student that sleep is not a passive phenomenon. It's an active phenomenon. So many things are happening. There is REM sleep, there is non-REM sleep, there is so many cycles of sleep which is happening. And in fact, at the subconscious level, all the things that we saw, we heard, we have the belief, the values, everything is also getting processed. So it all depends on what was your subconscious fed with, that what sort of gets processed to again give you another day of the conscious expression. Now, Yoga Nidra is a very, very popular tool, and it is about, a lot of it is available on YouTube, a lot of it is available on Google. Yoga Nidra is essentially tapping the subconscious and essentially planting an intent. So for example, I don't want freezing. I want my tremors to go away. That is my, let's say, intent. So what I do, of course, as a neurologist, I would just say, okay, give an X Inderal, X tablet and just fix your tremors. But into the realm of the subconscious science, I would say to a patient, I will show you how to do the Yoga Nidra. Okay, now this is an ancient Indian practice, but it is also quite vividly and widely available in the world. What it does is it has a 20 to 30 minutes of a self-record. Some of them have beautiful music. We just heard the music as you entered, and it sort of created some waves into the brain. And what the subconscious waves are being created are actually displayed in the Yoga Nidra's audio that you will listen to. So this is very powerful. So if you plant an intent, okay, just taking up that I don't want tremors, I don't want freezing, I don't want masking, whatever you don't want, the worst symptom which is bothersome for you, or even just say that, I don't want PD altogether. Science says, and psycho-spiritual science and cognitive science says that if you practice Yoga Nidra for 45 days, okay, now it is very important to do it every single day, because you just can't go inside the subconscious and just come out. You have to give it some time to process it. If you do that, then you will be able to, of course, as a side effect, sleep well. It has been shown to get you into the non-REM sleep pretty quick and fast. B, all the neurochemicals that we just talked about, other than dopamine, of course, dopamine is one little component of it, but all the other good ones get generated, and they have actually shown in the results. Then they have shown the QEEG changes, which happens. EEG, as I said, is just the record, which is from the brain. The changes which happens, the pre-session and the post-session, where you are actually able to have and go into that gamma state, or sometimes also into the theta state, which is the state of calm, relaxed, peaceful being and creative being. So it is very important that we do this practice every single day so that you can reap the benefits. Any sort of Yoga Nidra, there are many, many varieties, but anything is fine. Even if you don't want to do Yoga Nidra, you want to really be lazy and just do something very simple, I'm going to show that. I'm going to show actually two things which does the same job. One is little more powerful than the other, but it still works. And I want you to do it for yourself to know how it works. So back to my partner, Dr. Phil, and we're going to first have, now again, I'm not going to go into the technical details of it, what is this of it, but I'm going to show you this exercise, how you can do it. Now, this is the mini version of the same thing, Yoga Nidra, that we do. Phil, are you ready to do that?
Ready.
Yes. So what we do is we're going to take a deep breath. I'm going to show it first, and then you can repeat it so that everybody can participate if they want to in their own respective places. You take a very deep, nice breath. Sit straight as you can. as erect as possible for all the people who are watching. And then after taking a deep breath, you just have the humming sound of NG. I'm going to do that and show you without talking. So this is the humming sound. Okay, this is also called in the ancient tradition as Brahmari. But again, technical details are not important. What I'm doing by this practice is essentially having the same effect on the brain by releasing all the chemicals. You will start feeling very calm, very peaceful, very active internally, very pumped up, even energetic to an extent that, so you will be calm and energetic at one go, which is the beauty of it. So you have to do this multiple times or 3 to 5 minutes per day. So try, Phil. We'll do it together. A deep breath. Just keep your mouth closed while you are expiring. When you are exhaling, you just speak the sound. Yes. Excellent. Yes. One more time. No, sorry, obviously I practice a lot, so I might go up to a minute or two, but you can do it until what you can. 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 20 seconds, anything is completely fine. Okay. Phil, do you want to practice one last time and then we move on? Great. So if you do it really well, and if you actually close your eyes and this, immediately you will start feeling the difference. Okay. So I want all the participants to do at home, and this is called as, it's a very weird name, but I'm going to spell it. It's called Brahmari, B-R-A-H-M-A-R-I. One more time. It's called B-R-A-H-M-A-R-I. Okay. Right. Thank you, Phil. You've been an excellent partner. And we move on to a couple of important stuff before we do, again, 2 more interesting exercises with the same session. I hope you're still awake and here. So it is very interesting that human body sends about 11 bits per second of information to the brain for processing. Now, 11 million bits per second is a huge sort of the record which we continuously gather around. But the conscious mind, you remember we talked about the conscious and the subconscious. The conscious mind is only processing 50 bits per second. Wow. And you would say that where is the rest of the whole 11, 10 million something and 90 stuff going into? That is all going into the subconscious. Now, I was not a believer of this, that you can keep everything recorded and then you can have the power of subconscious to play you back, until I met Dr. Brian Weiss. I was a skeptic, a typical neurologist skeptic who would say that I only believe in the conscious memory. I know that a short-term memory can store an X information and a long-term memory can store a Y information. At the most, yes, what I was at 5 years old, 7 years old, possibly bits and glimpses and bits and pieces of it. But when I met him, and there are a couple of excellent books from him, Many Lives, Many Masters, Many Souls, Many Bodies, a lot of them. But when I said that, look, I'm a skeptic and I don't believe that the subconscious can actually store so much. And he did an experiment with me, and I cannot forget this experiment. Is he said, we will go through to see your birth. And I said, what is that? You know, I don't believe that that is possible. Your own birth, absolutely like an HD video session, and we were actually 50 of us, and each of us was trying to focus on that. But essentially my purpose was to see my own birth, and I saw exactly all the things that a labor room had, my mom and my grandmom, and all the stuff which was kept, and the clock which was there, and the gynecologist, what he was wearing, etc. and all. It was essentially mind-blowing for me. I was in New York then, and I called my mom back in India immediately, not respecting the time difference. And I said, look, sorry, I'm waking you up, but I want to know whether all these things were present as I was born. Was the color of the sheet X? Was the sound of this like this? Was the feeling like this, etc. and all? Was the weather, temperature of this? And exactly every single thing that I saw in that hypnosis or in that state of mind was exactly what had happened. Now, this was just a glimpse that how our subconscious is storing all the information, and actually our conscious mind can connect to that, provided we try to actually get deeper into it. Now, how does this relate to Parkinson's? Is because the more and more that we do, the more that we are going to get out of it. So as we will be going into the subconscious realm, this is the QEEG, which is actually firing up the gamma waves. And that is what will stop all our non-motor symptoms, all our motor symptoms, and essentially even getting back on the lowest dose of levodopa. Not having ons, not having offs is going to be possible. Now, I'll show one more experiment, which is very interesting experiment conducted by a neurologist called Dr. Pascal. What he did was he wanted to test how mental imagery can be powerful. Now, I showed you that intent is very powerful. It changes the physiology. And I'm going to share his experiment. What he did was he actually called some piano players, and he put a TMS coil around the brain to see what areas of the brain is being fired. And also then he called a few people who will not play the piano, the real physical piano, but they will mentally imagine the piano keys being played. Exactly the same keys were offered for both the participants and the control group. Okay, so the control group does not have the piano with them, while the actual physical people have the piano with them, and both of them will play one will play the mental keys, one will play the physical keys for about an hour or two. What he then did was scan both sides with the TMS, the brains, and what he found was the motor cortex, which is the motor cortex, upon repeated practice grew on the people who were playing physically the piano, but also exactly the same motor cortex and the cells grew for people who were only imagining playing the piano. So this is a very beautiful experiment, and what it suggests is the effect and benefit of exercise. Okay, I'm giving a very simple solution which can be done even if you don't want to exercise physically to get the brain changed. Even if you imagine properly the exercises that you're going to do, the same effect and outcome can be achieved. So mental imagery, because the brain does not understand between the physical, real, as well as the visual imagery. Okay, so brain can be fooled essentially, and you can get the same output what you can get by doing the stuff physically. So this is very important before we will actually tap onto today's exercises. So I just shared this. So actually you can change your mood. Oh, that looks a little bit like Phil. So you can actually change the state and the mood essentially only by mental visualization or mental imagery. Okay, so we all are different types of learners. Some learn through visual cues, some learn through auditory cues, some learn actually hands-on or doing, some are called kinesthetic type of learners. So today's exercises is having two outcomes. One, it will make you feel good about who you are. And two, if you really keep practicing, okay, the key here is persistence, persistence, persistence. If you keep doing it every day, you may be mild PD, moderate PD, severe PD, wherever you are, whatever combination of symptoms that you have, you will be able to overcome those symptoms. Possibly you might have a change of your levodopa dose. Your neurologist might be wondering what you did to have this. You can try that, but important thing is do it every day, 45 days. And these exercises are going to change the neural chemistry. So tapping the neurons, tapping the chemistry to give you all the benefits, okay? So 5 minutes a day. For people who think you are visual learners, how do you know? Some patients tell me, how do you know I am visual learner? Okay, very simple. If you like watching things, okay, if you like reading magazines, if you like visually stimulating stuff, you immediately go and get access to a visual media, you are a visual learner. While if you love listening to podcasts, you love listening to audiobooks, you like talking to friends and just be a nice patient listener, you are an auditory learner. Sometimes some people also talk to themselves. That is also kind of the auditory learning which is happening. And people who needs to move, who needs to fidgetate, who needs to doodle, who needs to draw, who needs to put stuff while as they are learning, they are the kinesthetic type of people. So for kinesthetic, we'll have a separate session because I need to be physically with you. So that's not going to be possible for today. But what we will do is we will do a visual exercise. And essentially this is to get your symptoms, whatever symptoms that you think are bothering you, out of the way. And also auditory exercise for people who are auditory learners, same outcome, get your symptoms out by simple techniques. Okay, so this is going to be a 5 minutes exercise and then I wrap up my talk. So let's do the visual imagery. Phil, are you ready?
Ready.
Yes, excellent. Anybody else who wants to join also more than, well, I think that, yes, perfect. More than welcome to join. So what we will do is, Phil, we will close our eyes very gently and take a few deep breaths. Now, as I take these deep breaths, what I'm stimulating is called the vagus nerve or the vagal tone, which is essentially causing excellent benefits for me. Getting my pulse low, getting my blood pressure low, just giving me a calming effect. So any exercise that you start, always good to have a few breaths in, deep breaths in, and slow exhales. So Phil is going to be the partner in this visual, positive, storytelling, imagery exercise for Parkinson's disease. Okay, Phil, you and me both are going to imagine ourselves. Okay, so I'm going to imagine me and you're going to imagine you. So we are both sitting in the same room and imagining ourselves to be as big and fat as you can imagine. 150 kgs, 200 kgs, 300 kgs, as big and as fat as you can imagine. You can expand yourself even to fill the whole room, completely fine with it. I want you to imagine you in this state, extremely uncomfortable. You can't move. You're stuck. You're frozen. You cannot move your arms. You are essentially absolutely depressed by this state. The feeling that you have is extremely upsetting. You don't want to be in this bad, big, rigid, completely frozen state of yours or mine. We don't want to be in this state. It's uncomfortable. Hold this image for some time, a few seconds. Get as uncomfortable as you can. Your heart may slightly raise because you're not in a comfortable state of mind. You're not liking that state. It's okay. You may not feel good at this point. It's completely fine. But you're just filling this room. You're just like big ball, essentially. rigid ball and you're not happy. Now I want you to hold that image of yours, the unhappy image, right there. And I want you to shift your attention and bring in front of you, right in front of you, a beautiful image of you, which is just perfect, which is fit, absolutely healthy, is moving the hands, legs. There is no freezing, is actually, you can dance, pivot around yourself. You're able to do all the steps up, down, 1, 2, anything that you want. You're happy. You're smiling in this state. You're absolutely brilliant. You look absolutely glowing. You can move, you can reach out, you don't have any masking, you can reach out your hands, arms, whatever you want to do. There's no tremor. It's a complete, perfect state that you are in. It's absolutely beautiful right in front of you. Right in front of you. I want you to just capture that image right in front of you. Right in front of you. Beautiful image of you, completely fine. You're doing all the activities that you wanted to. If I bring in a bicycle right there, you'll start riding it way faster than you can ever imagine. If I bring in a treadmill, you're just going to be absolutely rocking on that treadmill. If I bring in anything, even if I bring a boxing ring to you, you're going to just box out your life to it. You're going to do everything that you can ever imagine possible. And completely focus. Make this image bright, 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 nice, and absolutely still in front of you, beautifully there, and slowly, slowly get that big fat image broken into millions of pieces and out. It should be gone by now. The bad big image is completely shattered. It's gone into a million pieces and you just have a beautiful you right in front of you, brightly shining, absolutely stunning piece of good Lord, right there, and completely at ease, completely at self, happy, cheerful, smiling, thanking the universe for who you are, and absolutely feeling the bliss. Focus on that image of bliss, of peace, of health. And those shattered pieces are all gone by now. And this is the only image of you, completely free of Parkinson's disease, completely free of all the motor symptoms that we talked about, of all the non-motor symptoms. And you can open your eyes only when you're ready. Take your time because this is the most beautiful state that you can ever be. This is the state of being. This is the state where there's no disease. So take your time. Take a few deep breaths as you come out. And come out when you're ready. Phil, you're still with us? How did
Oh,
you
yeah.
feel?
In the first part, where I began to fill the room and feel the discomfort of the tight fit, I wanted to move back to show the camera, but my left arm, the tremor became so intense, I thought it was going to shake me right off my chair. And I wanted to stop the exercise. It was a level of heavy discomfort, and the tremor was wild. And when we shifted the image, it's coming back a little now as I'm reflecting on it, but the tremor completely stopped and remained completely. I wasn't trying to stop it. It just completely, almost like you threw the switch.
Yes.
And that was very powerful for me.
Thank you, Phil. I think this is very important. Thank you. You shared that. You can become very uncomfortable, and this is the purpose of the and this is called the swish technique, by the way. Swish means you just go from the bad self or the one that you don't want. Should not call it bad, but the one, the discomfort state, to the state of complete being, the perfect state that you can ever imagine. Okay. So this is called the real swish technique of NLP. Okay, I think I have, if I don't have time, we can stop, but yeah, otherwise we can do the auditory exercise, or I can just tell how can we do the exercise, okay? In the interest of time.
Yes, I think this has been so fabulous. I think everybody is loving it and enjoying it. So let's take one more minute. Tell us that last bit. I think everyone's soaking it up, so please.
Absolutely. So I'm just looking at my clock and I'm like, yeah. Okay, so the auditory exercise is very simple. As I said, for people who are not tuned to visual imagery, you can simply tell the story to yourself, okay, but now not in first person. So you are not going to be you. It's going to be in the third person. So I'm going to say, I saw Shweta walking down the alley, completely healthy, walking absolutely fine. She went through that doorway. Wow, that was a narrow doorway, and she completely swished past the doorway, and she was drinking a cup of coffee as she went into the coffee shop, and without spilling the coffee. And yes, by the way, she was also reading a book, which was very interesting. I think that book was Power of Habit. And she was making some notes, some beautiful notes, and the writing was absolutely legible and fantastic. So this is how you will, it's about a 30 seconds that I just did in the story. Now you can elaborate, you can stretch, you can pull anything that you want, but talk in the third person. Okay, so Phil is going to say he saw Phil just walking down there and taking a cup of coffee and doing this and doing that in a completely perfect, full, healthy way. Essentially, you are doing the same thing. What you did with visual imagery, you are actually bringing out the commands to your subconscious self, and that will manifest. Okay, that will manifest in the physical reality. Only thing is, do it long enough so that the circuits are formed. The science says anywhere from 21 days to 284 days. Somewhere my bit, which I try with my patients, is 180 days, which is long enough. But if you do it well, you do it right, you get the results. So thank you very much for having me here. And it was my pleasure talking to all of you. Thank you, Phil. You have been fantastic. Thank you all.
Yes, that was excellent. And I think a whole new avenue of wellness. So thank you for that. I think I'll be working on these techniques myself. I think it's good for all of us, right? So, and Susan, I think, fortunately, that was fantastic. Unfortunately, we won't have time for question and answers. Did you want to make any other comments for now?
Yes, besides thanking both of you, for all of you, for this fantastic webinar. I know we've run past our time, so we have one question from the audience, Ninad Bach, who we were going to play his song at the end, and he's here. He had one question. I think that we'll take one question today, and then we'll thank everybody for coming. So Ninad, you want to give us your question?
Thank you, Susan. You always have great speakers. Very interesting. Dr. Shweta, Shweta in Croatian means holy, by the way. And I heard you play table tennis. Are you aware that symptoms can be reversed by table tennis? Because I reversed some symptoms by playing table tennis. Yeah, and I will challenge you for a match. If you want.
See how we can get that together, Susan. I don't know. That would be so good.
Right. We're going to get a ping pong match. I don't know if we can do that over Zoom.
Yes, you can do virtual reality. Called 11.
Mentally, anyway.
11.
Right.
There is a platform called 11.
Right.
And you can play table tennis in virtual reality.
Oh,
Anyway.
there you go. Virtual solves so many things in different ways. So, and Dr. Shahed, do you have any last comments that you'd like to make?
No, I mean, that was a wonderful presentation, Shweta. I think, you know, it's always, I think it kind of aligns nicely with sort of the concept of being able to think positively and to sort of take proactive control of Parkinson's. I think, our wish is that patients do not sit and let Parkinson's kind of take them over, to kind of take it, by the horns and do something about it. And there's plenty of things that can be done, as you guys have heard. And so whether that's medications, whether it's, seeking control of other symptoms, whether it is managing in ways that don't have anything to do with medication, such as what Dr. Adatia was talking about, these are all fantastic ways to just sort of take this head on and hopefully get some additional relief beyond what you were otherwise getting.
Right. I one of my phrases I use is don't park it, move it, and move it mentally, move it physically. And so I think it's been wonderful to just explore the different avenues of doing that. And there are many. So like we started out saying, we want to be positive, and being positive is excellent for our whole self. So, right.
Well, thank you, everybody. Really fantastic event. I know many people will watch this recording again and again, and we'll probably have that up in a week from now. But I want to thank everybody. You could check out all the things that we're doing on our website, parkinsonswellnessproject.org. And right now, I want you to enjoy Ninad Bach's song, Ping Pong Parkinson's. So I want to please enjoy his incredible recording.
Thank you, Nina.
And the great organization he has.
If I had another life, I would never walk straight. All the things I love to do, other people love to hate. Wear my shoes on my ears and my hat on my feet. Park the car in the kitchen, take a bath in the street. I love ping pong, I love bums. I love the Three Stooges and those crazy drums. I like lovers who don't vote the same. And lying on my bed in the stars and the rain. Oh yeah. If I had another life, I would run, 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 have some fun. But seriously, if I had another life, I would run for president, feed the pigeons in the park, never pay the rent. Jerry Garcia, Secretary of State, declares money illegal. Now wouldn't that be great? I love ping pong, I love bums, anchovy pizza, and those crazy drums. I like lovers who don't vote the same. Lying on my bed in the stars and the rain. Oh yeah. Ooh, oh yeah. Now, if I had another life, I would do it all again. Run a movie from the middle, beginning at the end. Try to miss the target and win the biggest score. Tell my dad I love him like I never did before. I love ping pong, I love bums. I love the honeymooners and those crazy drums. I like lovers who don't vote the same. Talking to my father in the stars and the rain. Oh yeah. Ooh, oh yeah. If I had another life, if I had another life, if I had another life, if I had another life.
Woohoo. That is great.
It is great.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Ninad. Thank you, Dr. Shahed.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Sweeta. Adatia, thank you, Dr. Pallone,
You're welcome.
for running this whole show. And thank you, Dr. Phil. I
Yes.
appreciate it. We do have a survey at the end of this. If you don't mind filling it out, it helps us do better programming later on for you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, everyone, for sharing your talents.
Thank you, Susan.
Our next event, by the way, if you can all hear me, is July 11th. We're coming back with Music is Medicine, Part 2, because Part 1 was so amazing. So we're bringing everybody back again. And now we love your music. So visualize ourselves dancing to this music, right? And then we'll make it happen. Thank you, everybody. See you July 11th.